Greetings, ladies, gentlemen, and aliens. I am Space Ghost. Welcome to my new show. What do your arch enemies look like, Susan? What scares you?
Any freeze-dried, yogurty, malty looking thing. Anything white and creamy freeze-dried, stay away from it.
Judy, what is your true form? Tell me your secret identity.
I am the goddess of the galaxy, also known as Rue McClanahan.
Yes, the Golden Girls. I love the one where they all eat contaminated geritol and die.
Zorak, that's not one of their episodes.
Well, it should have been.
I could go for a poo-poo platter. Hey everybody, welcome to the Screwy Ain't It podcast. I'm Eddie.
And this is Dion, your co-host, coming in at you live.
Pre-recorded.
Isn't that what they're supposed to say? Isn't it always live?
Not all podcasts. I hear like some podcasts, they say like, we're recording this one in March and like it's already July and stuff like that.
But if we uploaded the same day, could it technically be live?
It could be almost live.
Almost live. You know what? Coming at you live. Almost.
There you
The
go.
Screwy Ain't It podcast.
Yeah. Today we're talking about Space Ghost, Coast to Coast, the very first original show that Cartoon Network ever did. And the reason we're doing this one is also because this is our first episode talking about Adult Swim, too. Which, for the five of you who don't know, Adult Swim is the nighttime block on Cartoon Network where it aims at adults, where you can watch adult animated shows, weird live action shows, and pretty much everything in between, and anime, and like anime that's like still censored to a degree, but like not as much as when it aired on Cartoon Network back in the day. But yeah.
With some of your favorites that I'm sure many of you are familiar with, Family Guy, King of the Hill, American Dad, Bleach, Naruto, a lot of big household names, and probably one of the biggest ones, and one of the original ones, Space Ghost. And if that's too popular for you, maybe you know the more obscure one, Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah. Or Xavier Renegade Angel.
Oh yeah, man! How do you not know about that one? How do you not know about Xavier Renegade Angel?
Yeah, I think I know the most obscure one, the Rising Sun. Did you ever hear about this one?
Everyone heard of the Rising Sun, Eddie. I'm sure every one of our listeners know exactly what you're talking about.
Probably. But
after they Googled it.
Yeah, basically, it was like they kind of buried it because like they never actually made a promo for it, but it was basically a show about Jesus and stuff like that. Not Black Jesus.
That was my first thought.
Yeah, I know. Like
I remember Black Jesus well.
Yeah, it was a white Jesus, basically.
Less fun.
Yeah. Anyways, where was I going with this? Yes. So, Dion, let me ask you, what is your history with Adult Swim in general?
It was the show that I wasn't supposed to watch until I was 14, and my parents were like, "Oh, what's the TV rating? Oh, why TV 14? Yeah, guess you can watch it." And that's where I got introduced to anime, Bleach, Naruto, Inuyasha, I never really got into the King of the Hill until more recently, until I was an adult.
The more comedy shows.
Yeah, more comedy shows. Family Guy was obviously probably the biggest one that I would come in consistently for. That one and American Dad. But yes, it was like the only late night TV that I could watch before it got into like the really obscure stuff and really weird stuff. That I'm just like, I'm not as interested. And then I switched back to either like Nickelodeon or Disney XD or whatever was on at the time. Probably George Lopez.
Yeah, George Lopez was like from the mid 2000s all the way to like only a couple of years ago. Like now all Nick at Night shows is Friends, just Friends.
And they're not even good friends either.
No, they're bad friends. My history with Adult Swim, I wasn't allowed to watch it, but here's the thing: I don't think my parents knew it existed. Even then, I still stayed away from it just because, like, I actually listened to the disclaimer at the beginning where it says Adult Swim has programming not appropriate for children. And it goes like, okay, if you say so. And it was like that for quite a few years, you know. I think, like, maybe I passingly watch, like, 1 or 2 episodes of Family Guy or Futurama back in the day because, like, I didn't know Adult Swim had started. But then, like, you know, as soon as something a little more out there happened, I'm like, ugh! You know, I was kind of a wuss as a child, to be honest.
We were all at one point.
Yeah, but like, I guess in a way, it's like it's sort of like the right time for some people. Where it's like when I was in middle school, I guess like I finally decided, you know what, I think I'm gonna stick around and watch some Adult Swim and stuff like that. And and then some of my favorite shows of all time came from it and stuff like that. Like, of course, like, you know, like King of the Hill, and later on Bob's Burgers, Family Guy, and then, like, all the other stuff. And, like, you know, over the years you also appreciate, it's like, you might disagree, but I think Adult Swim is, like, the most artistic expression on mainstream television. Because, like, you know, say whatever you want about, like, the style of humor, the comedy, how weird, how out there it gets, even sometimes how tasteless it can get sometimes. But it's like, you can kind of see that, like, they're the only ones who let people go as far as they can and just doing the most insane, absurd stuff on television.
Oh, I know, because Mr. Pickle exists. I will... That is probably, like, one of the only shows that I've ever seen to this day where I just said, I can't believe this got greenlit. Like, ooh... I'm not one to shy away from gore, like, you know, disgusting imagery, but that one took the cake. It was. I strongly urge everyone, even if you're really into it, probably not watch Mr. Pickle, especially if you're squeamish.
Did you ever see Super Jail?
I probably did, but it's probably one of those shows where...
Well, because that one is like, you know, Mr. Pickle's obviously gory as hell and stuff like that. But Super Jail was like basically, that was the whole thing. It was a show basically about nonstop gore and stuff like that.
Wasn't Super Jail like the one where we're following a warden with big glasses?
Yep.
And like he's in hell, I believe?
It's like Super Jail is like basically this jail in an alternate dimension where like he basically kidnaps prisoners or like criminals and stuff like that, and just basically it's like a twisted Willy Wonka-esque jail, and like everything's trying to kill you and stuff like that.
Yeah, I vaguely remember this, and I also did not like this one either.
I love Super Jail because it's like, you know, it's actually like, you know, really well animated and stuff like that, you know. But obviously not for everybody, I know that. But the subject of today's video or podcast is Space Ghost Coast to Coast, the very first one. And I'm going to bring up the history of it right now. Basically, when Cartoon Network first started, it was just basically what Boomerang was when we were growing up. Just like Hanna-Barbera, Looney Tunes, classic animation reruns and stuff like that. And it was like that for a couple of years. And the people working at Cartoon Network were like, we want to make something original. Something that's like actually new and stuff like that. And they constantly bothered their heads, like maybe even like up to Ted Turner himself and stuff like that, and basically asked him to like, can we have money for a show? And they're like, no, it's too expensive. And then eventually one of them, specifically Mike Lazo, who is going to be a name we'll talk about a lot, especially when we talk about Adult Swim, is basically he came up with the idea is like, well, what if we make a show for really, really, really cheap? And he figured out a way to do it, which was basically they had this whole library of Hanna-Barbera shows. So he came up with the idea is like, well, what if we take clips from an old show, edit around them, and make a new show? And what he basically did was like with the Hanna-Barbera show Space Ghost, and he and a bunch of other Cartoon Network employees wrote, edited, and made this show for pretty cheap. And like I'm pretty sure a lot of the guest stars they got was like favors or like had some sort of contract with like Turner at the time and stuff like that. So basically that's how basically the first Cartoon Network show started, and what would later become the genesis of Adult Swim. Because later on, like a couple years later, they like, we want to make more adult animation and stuff like that. But like obviously, I think it was like post South Park, so like that's when people were like, oh hey, adult animation can make money again. And that was around the time when King of the Hill and Family Guy started too and stuff like that. So basically what they did is they redid the formula in a way where it's like, okay, we'll make new shows for adults, but still make them pretty cheap and stuff like that. And like a lot of the early Adult Swim shows not only use that same formula, but they also were kind of spin-offs from Space Ghost. Like Brack from Space Ghost, he'd get his own show, The Brack Show. The Aqua Teens, like, believe it or not, started off on Space Ghost too, on an episode where like Space Ghost owes money to a fast food restaurant, so in exchange he has to have the mascots be on the show with him, and they would eventually turn into the Aqua Teens and stuff like that. And that's why they're fast food items and stuff like that. And then
see, I never knew Aqua Teen had such deep lore. Because I was just thinking, like, it was just some stoner's idea of
well, it was, but
it always is. But you know what? It's much deeper than we gave credit for.
Oh yeah, and then Birdman was a recurring character on Space Ghost, and like they gave him his own show too. And then like also like C-Lab was not a Space Ghost spinoff, but it used basically the same formula. And then it spans even to today, because like Eric Andre himself said that like Space Ghost was like one of the biggest influences for the Eric Andre show, and like he used to actually bug Mike Lazo about like, how'd you make it, and like he couldn't be bothered. He's like, I don't want to talk about Space Ghost anymore. It is 2012. So so yeah, what is your history with Space Ghost Coast to Coast, Dion?
I always thought Space Ghost Coast to Coast was just the ad break before we went from like American Dad or Family Guy into Robot Chicken. That was my. I didn't even realize it was an actual like series or episode. I thought it was just like a compilation of like short clips that were just used to like pad time during the late night hours.
Which you could argue was a justified response, because like Cartoon Network and Adult Swim used to do that all the time, make like the music videos in between and stuff like that.
Yeah, a little 5 to 10 minute short pieces of film, like usually like originals that people, which is why I 100% agree with you. Adult Swim does give some of the most creative freedom to its creators, which is really great to see, because most studios, they always want to like be either brand friendly or reach a certain target audience. So there's a lot of editing or like over the shoulder editing constant from executive and producers, and it's very nice to see such creative freedom even in these most obscure, obscene shows that kind of just make people just eyes go wide, like, oh my god, they did that? They said that? Is that a butt?
Are you talking about Assy McGee?
I'm probably talking about like 15 different characters with that line alone. And I don't even know one of their names.
Yeah.
But yes, my familiarity with Space Ghost was definitely I think probably was too young to really get it. It was just really fast and really hard to follow along, especially if you're coming in to the middle of the episode. Because a lot of the time, you know, just like kind of flipping through, or you wait until like the episode starts playing of the show you want to watch. So maybe you catch like the last 2-3 minutes of, at least for me, of Space Ghost or like Robot Chicken before it goes to American Dad or King of the Hill. But I wasn't a King of the Hill watcher as a kid, so.
Yeah.
Well, I was very, very light, but it was like I would say I'm a pretty unfamiliar watcher of Space Ghost.
Right.
Until today.
Yeah, we saw the very first episode, and I already forgot the name, but I feel like that's okay because they all have the weirdest names. Like the
Spanish translation.
Yeah, which does fit in with the episode because like in it there's this very odd running gag of like whenever it comes out of nowhere, there's no consistency. Randomly, Space Ghost or Zorak would say something, and then you'd hear like a narrator translated in Spanish and stuff like that. Which, you know, I also realize like sometimes with a lot of shows, like they don't find their identity until later on and stuff like that. Like, you know, you could argue that like, or The Simpsons is a good example. It's like when the first episodes of The Simpsons are very like more somber. They're not really like joke heavy and stuff like that, and like obviously the tone is kind of there, but like it's a lot more slower paced. And then like a couple seasons down the line, you have the monorail episode, which is insane, where it's like they have Leonard Nimoy, this insane plot about monorails, and like it became more consistent where like the Simpsons will have like a joke, like 15 jokes per minute and stuff like that, you know. And like I kind of thought like, okay, that'll be like Space Ghost. Maybe they're just trying, maybe like it'll be more corny the first couple episodes where it's like, oh, I'm Space Ghost, what are your superpowers, you know? That's something you'd probably imagine when you first hear this. But no, this is already like, they already had like their voice.
Insane, wacky humor.
And like not even that, it's like they had the voice of like Adult Swim like 7 years before it even started already and stuff like that.
It's funny that they're making fun of like talk show hosts and like podcast bros before like podcast bros even really blew up too, with their own, because obviously they're representing like, you know, just late night talk shows by bringing in special guests and asking like, you know, funny questions while they promote or talk about either the upcoming film or like projects, etc., etc. But you can't compare it to Space Ghost's bulging muscles that he uses to defend against evil and tyranny. Like when women will take over the world is apparently something Space Ghost is gonna have to fight against. It's all in good jokes, good fun.
Yeah, it's this first episode already. It's like who were the guests? Like it was Susan Powder, who I had to look up before this. Is like was a talk show host, I believe, back in the early '90s. Very like who talked a lot about feminist issues and stuff like that, and then and Kevin Meaney, who I was a little familiar with, not super familiar. I never really listened to his stand-up, but I know he was like a big stand-up comedian in the 80s and the 90s, and like he actually did a couple of voice roles later on. Where it's like he was on Garfield and Friends as like a Aloysius Pig, who was like this annoying little pig who would criticize everyone, and he even does his voice because apparently it was based on a stand-up routine he used to do, which he does in the show. He does like a whole like that's not right thing and stuff like that.
His voice did seem very familiar to me. I was actually going to ask you what voice acting roles he has done, or some of his most popular ones.
Yeah, he was also on Rocko's Modern Life as I forget her name. She was the cat with the hook and stuff like that. Dr. Crutch, I think her name was, or something like that. He played her mom, and he used the mom voice that he also did, which I believe was also a stand-up routine that he used to do and stuff like that.
Because he did seem very familiar.
Yeah, no. He was, and then, like, the odd thing is, like, the most familiar guest in this episode was the Bee Gees, and they literally just shoo them out at the end, like nothing.
I thought he got obliterated.
They got obliterated.
I thought he obliterated the Bee Gees. You know, just good old-fashioned, you know, laser style.
Yeah. Yeah, it is I think, like, it already establishes, like, it already establishes the formula for Space Ghost Coast to Coast. Absurd, just surreal and absurdist questions to the guest, no matter how confusing they may be or how uncomfortable the guest may be. I feel like the guests they got for this one were kind of in on the joke, but there are definitely later ones where it's like the guests like get even more confused and stuff like that. Because like how they made the show was insane. It's like obviously we see like Space Ghost looking at a monitor. Apparently what they did is like they just shot the guest on like a black screen or like a green screen and stuff like that, and just read to them the script with like the questions, like the insane questions that Space Ghost asks in here and stuff like that. And it goes like do you like my arm wrists and stuff like that? And like a lot of them would also be like guests where it's like they have no idea who Space Ghost probably even is at all, you know.
So that's where we can definitely see their acting chops, especially for their future projects of the green screen and CGI. It's going to be hard to act with that live action Toothless when it's not actually there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake.
Or just like a lot of heavily CGI based films in the future. But it's really interesting to hear that these people were just kind of blindsided with like the absurdity of the entire situation, thinking they're just doing like a script reading for a show, but then it turns out, oh, they're getting punked interview style.
Basically, yeah. And it's like yeah, it's like I said, it's like basically a precursor to the Eric Andre show, where on that one he basically just tortures celebrities, you know.
Doing Andre's work. Thank you, Eric.
Exactly. Anyways, but yeah, it's like, and we already established too, like Moltar and Zorak, like these basically in the story of the show is that they were imprisoned, and as part of their parole, Space Ghost is making them be the band leader and the director of his show, and like they just hate him, obviously. Yeah. Oh, we should talk a little bit about the people behind this show, because like we talked a little bit about Mike Lazo, but we should also talk about the late great C. Martin Croker, who was the voice of Zorak and Moltar. And, like, you know, was not only just that, but, like, he also wrote a lot of it. He animated a lot of it, like, any actual new shots that they actually needed and stuff like that. And, you know, he had a very tragic end to his life, which I'm sure we might talk about eventually. But for now, it's just like, yeah, this was very much a show he worked on. And then another funny character is Brack in this one, who's, like, a lot more different from how he'd become, like, I think even by the end of this season. Because, like, in this one, he and his brother, whose name I always forget, it's okay because...
His name is Brother.
Yeah, brother. Yeah, let's just say brother, yeah. Because, like, on the Brack show, his own show, he literally only showed up every once in a while just to walk past and fart. That was it.
Yeah, I think Brothers fits his name pretty well in this context.
Yeah. I'll include a clip of what I'm actually talking about, but, yeah. So, and, like, it's funny how, like, him and his brother are just basically Beavis and Butthead parodies this first one. They just impersonate them and stuff like that, which is so crazy when you hear Brack later on, where it's like, he's got the big dopey voice, he sounds like this, I'm Brack, you know, and stuff like that. And, like, Brack would later become such a popular character. It's like, even before the Brack show, he was popular enough where it's like they did sort of a spin-off, so to speak, which was Cartoon Planet, which was a block where they would show most of the Hanna-Barbera shows and stuff like that, but Space Ghost and Zorak would talk in between, and instead of Moltar, they had Brack. So that sort of cemented Brack as not just a popular character within this universe, but also in Cartoon Network in general, because, like, even before Adult Swim, Cartoon Network would do, like, a lot of promos or ads with, like, characters in them, and Brack was in a lot of them and stuff like that. Like, they used to do one where it's, like, a Survivor parody, where it had, like, all sorts of different Cartoon Network characters, like Johnny Bravo, Top Cat, Daphne, and Brack all on like a desert island, like Survivor, and basically like a Survivor reality show and stuff like that.
The one who I'm surprised is still here is Brack.
Technically, he is not really one of us cartoons.
He's a freak. You're getting a good sign, right?
I don't know. Yeah. Oh, here come the bag. Uh-oh, here come the bag.
Whenever I hear Top Cat, my mind immediately goes to SWAT cats.
We're gonna talk about them too, because that was a good show. But no, Top Cat was the Hanna-Barbera. He was the yellow cat.
Yes.
He was like the scam artist and stuff like that.
Aren't they all? Like, break into your house, use their cuteness to make you give them food, and then they live with you for the rest of their lives.
I think you wonder how internalized the treatment of cats from Egyptians still is cemented in their minds.
Cemented in apparently all cat owners, especially.
Yeah. No, but anyways, yeah, it's like, yeah, Brack was a big character, and this was like a big deal, believe it or not, like back in the 90s, like, because it was not only Cartoon Network's first original show, it was also like one of the first, it was like from the first wave of adult animated shows, like after The Simpsons came out, so did come out like weird stuff like Capital Critters, Fish Police, Family Dog, a bunch of other shows that you have no idea what I'm talking about right now, and that just shows how cemented they were at the time. But also, like, some shows you might know the names of, like The Critic or Duckman and stuff like that.
I've heard of Duckman.
Yeah. And, like, that was, like, from the first wave after The Simpsons, where it's like, oh, so you can make money off of adult animation. And not a lot of them really stuck around, because, like, they didn't realize that, like, the reason The Simpsons worked was because it was its own thing, in a way, where it's like it had an actual voice, something to say, and, like, I guess also The Critic and Duckman, but, like, the others were just trying to see, like, what would be a show adults would like? Capital Critters. It's a show about mice and roaches that live in the White House, so they'll talk about politics, because this is what adults like, right? Right?
What?
Exactly. It's like, that's basically their line of thinking. And then, like, I don't think they really got it until, like, when South Park came out, and they were like, okay, well, maybe we should, like, let people tell, like, actual story, or it's like, try to give them more of a voice and stuff like that. And that's how we led to King of the Hill and Family Guy, and, like,
more structured, like, shows.
Yeah, like, shows that, like, people would actually want to watch and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
I
remember Duckman's favorite, his rant. I don't remember what the rant's about. I just remember he had a very popular clip that kind of came back in, like, a few years ago, like, online.
About the comedy thing?
I don't remember if it was a comedy, but we could probably find it and, like, actually watch it.
Well, Duckman was a good show. It was really funny. It's like, it was very Simpsons inspired, but it was also like a show where it's like, it kind of pointed out how
he talked a lot of trash.
Oh yeah, he was like,
he had one heck of a potty mouth.
It was like, it was a show about a character who did not give a shit and stuff like that. And in the 90s, that was really in.
It must be nice.
Yeah.
It must be nice to be Duckman.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. It wasn't. Because, like, he had to raise his kids as a single dad, and his sister-in-law was awful to him, and he made very meager money as a detective and stuff like that.
It was okay to be Duckman.
Yeah. Anyway, Space Ghost. Yeah, another... Like, did you... Like, I think you mentioned, like, you never heard of Space Ghost before Adult Swim either. Not even the Hanna-Barbera show.
Yeah, I always assumed that the Space Ghost Coast to Coast was just it was a parody of a comic book character. Because I was thinking to myself, this character looks too well established to just be this one-off, like, created for all these this parody usage. But it absolutely could have been. And as I see, like, more clips, like, here and there, because I think Space Ghost also appeared in other things, but I can't remember where.
He was, like, he showed up, like, a lot on all... Like I said, he was also on, like, a couple other Cartoon Network bumpers, too, like the one where Fred and Chicken are like coming back from lunch and they're looking for a parking spot.
Yeah, I seen him. I believe I have seen him cameoed a few times before. And I always just assumed he was a comic book character that was I won't say more more obscure than your average than your average ones.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Also, it's like I think one of the reasons they did the show and picked Space Ghost probably is because like nobody cared about him. Like unlike maybe say like Tom and Jerry or like even like Yogi or the Flintstones, those are like Hanna-Barbera's babies. There's like their bread and butter, like the characters that people think of first when they think of Hanna-Barbera and Scooby-Doo, and to a degree. We'll get to that some other day, but yeah, those are like the shows that people loved and cared about and still were like talking about or making and stuff like that. But like Space Ghost basically died in the 60s after it came out and stuff like that. And it was never super popular enough to like, stay on for super long or like get like multiple shows like the Flintstones or like multiple revivals like Tom and Jerry and stuff like that.
And Tom and Jerry had a lot of revivals.
Oh yeah. There's like just a couple days ago they announced that China is basically dropping a new movie out of nowhere. Like it's like it takes place in China. I think it was even made in China and stuff like that. So it's like Tom and Jerry persists and Scooby-Doo persists too and stuff like that.
To this day.
To this day.
Did we not also just get another Scooby-Doo remake?
I think the last one was like one of the movies. I forget which one it was. It was like, it was the one where they team up with Superman and Krypto. Timing. Because like Superman just came out. And Krypto was heavily featured in it. And they do have a new show coming up. It's like, this one's definitely more anime inspired. I think they're gonna hunt yokai and stuff like that. Yeah. It looks pretty nice. We'll check it out when it comes out. But yeah, no, it's like, I think a reason why they picked Space Ghost is because like nobody really knew or cared about Space Ghost in 1994. So they said like, yeah, sure, go ahead, do that one.
Just take it.
Yeah, just take it, It's like, he's like maybe a step above Quickie Koala. Do you know who Quickie Koala is?
I have never heard that name till you said it right now.
It was another... We're going to go through so many obscure, crazy Hanna-Barbera shows that you wouldn't even believe existed and stuff like that. Like millions and millions of like Scooby-Doo clones. Like you think you know them all, like Jabberjaw, Captain Caveman. No, there's like stuff like Clue Club.
Isn't Jabberjaw the one with the shark?
The Jabberjaw's the shark, yeah. But like there's also Clue Club, which was about... Yeah, they had the most boring team too. It's like just two talking dogs. That was it. And like, do you know the Funky Phantom?
No.
Do you remember the Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated episode where they teamed up with like all the other Scooby-Doo knockoffs? He was one of them.
I need to go back and rewatch all of Scooby-Doo Incorporated.
We're gonna get to that one.
I keep putting it off.
We're going to get to that.
I need to start. I just need to start today. Today.
But no, it's like, yeah, there's like there were so many. So it's like, you think of Hanna-Barbera, you think of like the main shows like Flintstones, Jetsons, Scooby-Doo, blah blah blah. But like you forget like. They were basically a cartoon factory in the 60s through the 80s and stuff like that. And, like, if they found any show that was, like... Made money, they would make 10 more exactly like it. Like, all the Scooby-Doo ripoffs. There were so many, basically, shows that reused the Yogi Bear formula of, like, a talking animal, his little sidekick, and their authority figure who always like fought against them and stuff like that.
It would have been nice to be a storyboarder animator back in the 60s and 70s.
Because like, you had work.
Yeah, our opportunity for work at least.
Yeah, and it's like, and then there was like even like a bunch of like, did you know the Snorks?
Sounds familiar.
They were like underwater Smurfs, basically.
I do. You just unlocked a memory right now.
Yeah, the Snork.
Oh, that was... Oh my god, that was a whole different thing.
Yeah. And like they also made another one called... Nobody remembers this one. Trollkins. It was basically like little trolls who rode around on motorcycles in the forest and stuff like that.
Oh my god, I love Snorks.
Yeah.
Looking it up, yeah, I adored Snorks.
I think looking back, I think I kind of liked Snorks more as a kid. Just because, like, I feel like they had more variety in characters in a way. Because, like, they had more than one girl. And, like,
you can pick, you can choose.
Exactly. You know, they had a less annoying theme song, too.
I don't remember the theme song at all. I just remember
I kind of do is, like, play along with the Snorks, swim along with the Snorks. There was also, like, I mean, you know, yeah. Anyway, point is, like, yeah, the library of Hanna-Barbera is so oversaturated that, like, you know, you forget how many shows they made. So it was very easy. And that's also what leads into Adult Swim, too. It's like, C-Lab is probably an even more obscure show than, like, Space Ghost. And, like, an even more boring show, too. Like, the original C-Lab 2020 was basically just them going, like, we are going to fix the power line for the station. We are going to save dolphins today. And, like, it was made in the 70s, so you can imagine how it looked and sounded and stuff like that. And, like, how it's basically, like, a cure for insomnia in a way and stuff like that.
Actually put people to sleep.
Yeah, probably. It's like, and that's why it only lasted one season. And that's why they's like, well, nobody cares about this show, so why don't we actually make something weird out of it? And then, like, C-Lab 2021, I can't wait to get to that one, because that show is insane. Because, like, did you remember that one?
When you said C-Labs, I was trying so hard to think of anything that seemed adjacent. Nothing.
If anything, maybe the one thing you know is that the creator would later go on to make Archer.
Love Archer.
Yeah.
I adore Archer.
And C-Lab has, like, very early Archer roots in a way. At least the way the characters interact and talk. Like, they're also, like, a workplace where it's like everybody hates each other and stuff like that.
Yeah, looking up C-Lab, I have not watched a second of this show. 2021.
Yeah, because, like, the original was 2020. So, like, when Adult Swim did their show, it was called 2021.
Oh.
Yeah.
So it's a more recent adult animation.
Basically, you know. It's like, but, like, you know, we're recording this in 2025.
True.
And, like, it reminds me of we'll get to Harvey Birdman eventually, too, where it's like they have the joke with the Jetsons where George shows up and, like, he goes like, we come from the far future, back from the year 2001. And they look on the calendar and it says 2004. Yeah.
Time travel.
Yeah, and, like, oh man, I can't wait to get to the rest of Adult Swim because we have so much to talk about. We have all the anime, Cowboy Bebop.
I mean, Hanna-Barbera alone could take up a whole, like, season of discussion.
Oh, yeah. Because, like, you know, I want to get through, like, the bullet point shows, obviously. Like, we did Flintstones. I want to do Scooby-Doo. We got to do... I want to do Jetsons eventually, too.
I liked Jetsons. I remember liking that one a lot whenever it came on.
Yeah, me too. It was like, you know. And then, like, what was the other one? It's like, we could talk about Grey Babe, too, if you remember that one by any chance.
That one does not click.
What about Secret Squirrel? You remember him?
That one seems more familiar.
Yeah. Well, they also remade it for Two Stupid Dogs, if you remember that show, too.
I do remember Two Stupid Dogs.
That show was insane.
I don't remember much about the show, but I do remember, yes, that line, this show's insane. Because I don't think you were the only person who said that when it was on.
No, he's like, I'm genuinely shocked they got away with some of the stuff they did on that show and stuff like that.
I don't remember a thing from that show.
I can't wait to show it to you and just see your face. Just like the...
At this point, we should just become a React channel. It just...
Basically.
Go from there.
Yeah, but I like having these discussions about the history and stuff like that, too. And maybe if enough people watch the show, what we could do is, like, maybe start a reaction sideshow where it's like you see our reactions to what we're watching and stuff like that before the discussion. Just throwing that out there in case anybody would be interested in that, you know. I hate to sound desperate, but I am. But anyway, any last thoughts on Space Ghost Coast to Coast?
I can see where a lot of our inspiration, especially like modern adult comedy, comes from. because one of my first thoughts of watching it was interdimensional cable from Rick and Morty.
Yeah.
And I can definitely see a lot of jokes and mannerisms kind of influencing other shows and being referenced. So right now, I can appreciate Space Ghost, Coast to Coast, for kind of maybe not being the gateway, because it is a parody of late night talk show hosts, but it definitely started something that we can all appreciate today.
Yeah. And like I said, like, even though I said, like, this show already found its voice, I think, in its first episode, it just gets crazier and crazier. Because, like, the episode where they interview Conan O'Brien, there's a short version and a long version. In the short version, there's, like, a couple minutes where Space Ghost chases around an ant. In the long version, that spans, like, 10 minutes. And that's all you see, Space Ghost just following an ant. And, like, when it first came out, they advertised it. It goes, like, watch the first half-hour Space Ghost Coast to Coast episode. And then when you see it, like, they pad it out with 10 minutes of him just following an ant.
That is a perfect April Fool's joke if I have ever heard.
I think it might have been an April. Which we also got to talk about how Adult Swim loves April Fools. And, like, pulls off the most elaborate and crazy April Fools.
Well, when you're in animations or like showing some of the most obscure and random shows on this side of the network, then yeah, I'm a love April Fool jokes, because almost there's no holds barred. You can tell the most horrendous, raunchy, or, like, you know, you can bait your entire audience into the craziest April Fool's pranks ever.
Yeah, it's like, and like one of the best ones was when they brought back Toonami out of nowhere, you know. Like, they started playing The Room, and then suddenly Tom just popped up, and it goes like, hey, everybody, April Fools. And then they just played Toonami for the rest of the night.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's a good joke.
That's not a joke, that's a gift.
That is a gift. You're right about it. That's a present.
Yeah. And then Toonami's been with us ever since, so, you know.
Thank you, April Fools.
Yes, thank you, April Fools. Thank you, Adult Swim. Thank you, Space Coast Coast to Coast.
You are what turned me into a weeb.
Yeah. Okay. Any last thoughts?
I think that's it.
Alrighty. Well, next time we're coming back, we're gonna be going back to the Golden Age. We're gonna talk about Tom and Jerry. Until then, this is Eddie.
This is Dion.
Thanks for listening to the Screwy Ain't It podcast. We'll see you all later.
Almost live.
Yep, almost live. Bye-bye, everybody.